Hey, this is Richie here with Rougen TCG. Today, we're going to be experimenting with a new idea for a project. So, I have two archetypes currently in the game, one of which being the knights, which you've already seen, and the second being the dragons. Now, you haven't seen them yet, but I would like to create a third. You see, in my previous video, we had a like goal of 10 likes, and thankfully we reached it. So now, I'm at the point where I was running low on ideas. I had no idea that I would have my like goal destroyed so very quickly. And now, I've come up with a brilliant new solution for that. Today, we're going to be drawing cards based on common phobias. For example, the fear of the dark, fear of heights, the fear of spiders, you know. We'll be creating 9 cards today. That's how many I could fit on this template that I made before the video. And they will be based on common phobias. Alright, with that in mind, I'm going to start with my first card, Fear of the Dark. Alright, I finished the first design for the first card. This one will be called Nicto. It is a common with the Nightmare archetype, with the effect, when this card loses defense, play another Nightmare from your deck. So clearly, when you play this first, it's to bring out secondary Nightmares that you can use to attack with. This card, 0 force stats, it is not very good for the board. However, this synergizes incredibly well with other cards. Definitely one that you wouldn't want to see in attack though. If you weren't playing Nightmares, that is. Either or, the Fear of the Dark is now finished, and now I'm going to move on to the Fear of Heights. Alrighty, I've just about finished the final design for our second card, the Fear of Heights. His name is Acro the Giant. It is a common rarity with 6/6 stats, which is rather high for a card by itself. The Nightmare archetype and the effect of this cannot be played from the draw. Now, this obviously can be played by the effect of Nicto. However, if you were to put this in a secondary deck that also had the ability to play from your deck or your grave, this would be a phenomenal card to have. So I like to think that this card isn't only a Nightmare card, although maybe it's a Nightmare for your opponent. Moving on, I will be drawing the Fear of Spiders. Alrighty, I've just finished my third card. Its name is Arachno Crawler. It's a common with only 1 attack but 6 defense. It is in the Nightmare archetype with the effect, anything this attacks, it deals lethal damage. You might be thinking that sounds pretty powerful. However, you must remember that it is. I'm considering nerfing it to a 1/5, perhaps even a 1/4 because it deals so much damage. However, we'll wait to see in playtesting to see if that actually affects the game in any way. Moving on, we'll go ahead and draw one of my personal favorite ideas that I had, the Fear of Clowns. If you do have a fear of clowns, feel free to skip to this timestamp, and here we go. Finishing touches on my fourth card. This will be Colro the Great, a rare with 4 attacks, 3 health, pretty close to optimal. It's in the Nightmare archetype with the effect, other cards cannot target this creature except creatures. This will be interesting for decks that aren't Nightmares, and it works fine for decks that are. I can easily see this being made into a different deck just because of the effect. However, that doesn't mean that it's going to be great outside of those decks because it won't have the Nightmare synergy to go along with it, and not having optimal stats is dangerous on the board. That being said, let's move right along to one that I personally have, which is the Fear of Tight Spaces. Alright, I gotta stop myself from drawing coffins. This here is Claustro Coffin Maker. He is a common with 2 attacks, 6 health, very good stats. It is a Nightmare archetype with the effect, creatures attacked by this creature lose the ability to attack, almost as if they're being trapped inside of a coffin. Not really much to say about this card, it's strictly good. I'm considering taking it down to 5 health, similar to Arachno Crawler. I probably will in testing because this card seems extra good. Only one way to find out though. Moving on, let's move on to the Fear of Snakes, another one that I actually do have. Alrighty, moving on to the late great Ophidio. It's a common with 5 attack, 2 health, not the greatest stats. It's a nightmare with the effect, this creature must take exact damage to kill. This would be a great card to pull from Nikto if you had a particularly large one singular minion on your opponent's board. That way you could clear the board, perhaps keep Nikto, although it's very unlikely if you need Ophidio, and you'd have board control. Alrighty, moving on to the bottom 3. The next one we'll be drawing is the Fear of Mannequins. Alrighty, very simple card design here. You say tomato, I say automato crew. It's a rare card with only 1 attack and 1 defense. It's in the Nightmare archetype, and the effect is this creature must be killed 4 times. This can be comboed very well. It has the ability to stay on the board, which helps for other creatures which gain abilities based on if creatures are on the board. And I think it'll be very fun to see in play. It's also a great way to stall your opponent. Moving swiftly forward, we have one of the last 2, which is the Fear of Illness. Alrighty, very simple card design for this one. It's called the Hypo Squad. It's a common with 2 attack, 3 health, not very good stats at all. It's in the Nightmare archetype with the effect to gain +2 attack, +1 defense for every other Nightmare in play. This works very well with Automata Crew and Nikto. Moving on to our final card, perhaps one of the most common, is the Fear of Sharks. Alrighty, our final card is complete. Its name is Gallio Ripper. It's another rare card, a very expensive archetype. It has 2 attack, 5 health, not the worst stats that we've seen today. It is a Nightmare archetype with the effect, if this creature kills a creature, it may attack again. Now this is a direct counter to token minions. You might be wondering, why would you want that? Because this entire archetype, surprising no one, is built around finding counters to other decks. You might be thinking that sounds a little overpowered, don't you think? However, the cards themselves aren't the best. These cards only thrive when your opponent is playing, making them a literal nightmare.